What things did you do as a kid that you now realize is extremely weird? When I was in 4th grade, so around 9 or 10, at a private school, we used pinto beans as counters during math. Well, one day someone realized if you put a bean in water, it would sprout, and it became incredibly fashionable to keep a couple living bean sprouts hidden in your desk at all times. This turned into a whole industry. Sneaking to the cabinet in the back and stealing the beans was risky, so people took on those roles. The beans were old, so getting them to actually sprout was valuable. Others would sneak the sprouts in and out of class to get sun. A boy's grandparents had bought him a science experiment kit that came with hundreds of these little plastic vials that stood up on their own. They were the perfect size for keeping a sprouted pinto bean, so he started trading them. Another 2 kids had water bottles with a straw that fit neatly into the vials and made it easy to water the sprouts. They turned it into a service. One pretty talented group of girls started making houses out of paper and cardboard for the sprouts to live in. This allowed bean families to become a thing. Another girl realized that the houses meant there was a market for bean sprout furniture. Kids starting pulling textbooks out of their desks and stashing them around the classroom to make space for larger and larger houses. The houses were a turning point, because they ran anywhere from $5 to $10, which was the first time anyone had charged real money for something instead of bartering. In addition, demand for sprouts went through the roof, since you could fit 4 or 5 in a house. The kid who had been successfully sprouting the beans is under immense pressure to produce, and we've crossed a threshold so people are willing to pay real money now. Into this high-pressure situation walks my classmate Julia. Julia brings a tiny bottle of purple liquid one day and tells Bean Sprouter Kid that it's the diluted slime of an extremely rare snail from the forests up north that she collected herself while camping with her family. It's such a strong fertilizer, even diluted, that 1 drop in each vial will guarantee that a bean will sprout. In addition, a drop to each already sprouted bean will ensure a nice, green plant. There's enough for around 50 sprouts in there, but it's going to cost him $20 for the whole bottle. Well, if you're selling the sprouts at $1 each, $20 is a steal. So the kid comes back the next day with the cash, Julia gives him the fertilizer, and he puts a drop in each vial just before we leave to go home. The next day, all his bean sprouts are dead, and he's pissed. Turns out the fertilizer was just Julia's mom's perfume, and it killed all the plants. Well, Bean Sprouter Kid is not the kind of person to take this laying down, so he goes to the teacher to tell her that he got conned. And the whole thing unravels. The teacher is upset that her students have been devoting hours of in-class time to beans. Parents are upset that money they thought was for snacks or field trips was for beans. The principal has to announce to the whole school that growing plants in your desk is now banned, which just confuses everyone else. And my class is angry at poor bean sprouting kid for snitching and ruining everything. All their hard work is now in the trash. The bean sprout industry never recovered. There were spiders and mice in my room which totally freaked me out, so every night before I went to sleep I'd whisper a report of what the weather was outside to encourage them to go outside rather than stay inside and bite me in my sleep. That is so cute. Rather than wanting them to be killed or refusing to sleep in your own room, you just told them the weather instead. Super cute. I used to host imaginary science shows where I would get questions from viewers that I had to answer. I don't remember a lot of the questions from my fake audience, but I remember trying to explain that glass actually could let air through, and that was the explanation to how we didn't suffocate when all the doors and windows were shut. Young me did not know a whole lot about ventilation. Edit. I also remembered something else now. My mom worked as a nurse, and she sometimes let me take syringes home with me, both with and without needles. Don't really know how I feel about that nowadays, though. I sometimes took a bit of everything from our bathroom, shower gels, shampoo, whatever fluid I could get my hands on basically, and I filled a mixture of the shit and put into a syringe. I then sneaked around the apartment and chose my victim, a poor plant of some kind. I injected a small dose of the magical elixir into the poor plant. Super happy this didn't develop some sort of mental disorder for me later. I used to have science experiments in the bathroom sink. Meaning, I'd go the bathroom and lock the door. Once in, I'd make sure the sink drain was shut and then proceed to add every cleaner / chemical / shampoo etc. under the sink to the sink in hopes of a reaction. Never got one, but it also never stopped me from trying. In hindsight, I probably could have killed myself if I had mixed the wrong stuff. I obviously didn't. I did this too. Then got a bunch of headaches and never did it again. Mind you, it did take a couple of headaches for me to realize me mixing random shit gave me headaches. Edit: I don't think it was ammonia and bleach just because of the era and location. Sometime in the 90s, in Ukraine, in a fairly poor neighborhood, I know for sure toothpaste was involved, maybe some iodine, probably some sort of rubbing alcohol type stuff, and shampoo. Also, while I stopped mixing bathroom items, I started mixing different foods. Then my friends and I would dare each other to try the mixtures. I'm starting to wonder how I survived childhood. I used to eat tissues as a kid. My mum found out one day and yelled at me to stop, as any sane parent would do, so I started eating them in secret. Sneaking away with a tissue box to another room to eat a tissue or two. Until one day when I was about 5 years old, I had to go to the hospital. I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was that I had trouble breathing through my nose. Before my operation, I was in the hospital and I overheard one of the nurses say that they just needed to remove the excess tissue in my nose. Naturally, I thought that the tissues I had eaten had started getting clogged up in my nose and I never ate a tissue again. I made the realization at 14 that it was muscle tissue in my nose and not the actual tissues I was eating. Edit: I'm glad to learn that I'm not alone with my strange habit. Also wanted to add that I saw some people mention getting tissue stuck in their ears, and I had a close call in primary school when I rolled a piece of paper into a really small ball and put it into my ear. If you haven't realized, I wasn't the brightest child, had to go to the medical bay to get it taken out with tweezers.